This conference
little
will
overview.
now be recorded.
So we had a little overview of what are the sales processes we'll be having. So let us discuss a little more detail into that particular sales process. Yeah, sales process, right? So let us discuss the first sales process, which is inquiry, and how to create that in the system. So the first sales process is inquiry, right? So how do we create inquiry? We create inquiry with a transaction code called as V11, with a V11 transaction. And how do we identify each transaction in the system? That is through some document type. Okay. So with the document type, we like identify any. You can see here. So I'll show you the chart. Yeah, you can see here. So if it's an inquiry, it's identified as IN, quotation, QT, order, OR, rush order, RO, cash sales, CS, patterns, RE. Like this. That means any document in the system will be identified with this kind of codes, right? So how to create an inquiry with the transaction code called as V11, with the transaction code as a V11, and the standard inquiry type is IN. Standard inquiry type is IN. So let me get into the system and show you how to create the inquiry. So V11 is the transaction code to create an inquiry. So the inquiry document type is IN, and let us enter the sales area. So as I mentioned, you create a master data or you create transactions. Anything under the sales module has to be under the sales area. Right? So whether it's a master data or transactions, whatever you create in the sales and distribution module, it should be under the sales area. Right? So mention the sales area, press enter. So this is the sales execute system we'll be taking. So first enter your sold to party, then ship to party, and material, what material customer is inquiring for. So let's say customer is inquiring for 100 material, and how much quantity. I'll just enter one. It can be any quantity. I'll just enter one. Right? So now let us save this document. So how do we save it? By clicking this, we save this particular document, and system will generate a document number. You see, system has generated an inquiry document number called as 10006. Right? We'll just take this document. So this is how we create an inquiry. Okay. So this is how we create an inquiry. Once we create an inquiry, copy the inquiry number, because see, we can create a transaction with reference to a preceding document or independently. Okay, that's up to the business. That means if I want to create an order, we can create an order with reference to quotation. Quotation I can create with reference to a inquiry. Right? So it's up to the business whether they want to create a document with reference to business or not. So we created an inquiry. I'll show you both. Then next is quotation. So how do we create a quotation? We create quotation with a transaction code called as VA21. So what is the difference between quotation and an inquiry? What extra information a quotation will be having apart from the inquiry? So what is the information quotation would be having extra? That is confirmed quantity and validity periods. Okay, validity periods are the most important in the quotation. So once we get into the quotation VA21, so the document type is QT, and you enter the sales area, say press enter. The same again, enter the sold to party and ship to party, then material which you are inquiring for. Let's say 100 and 1. we can either create an inquiry like this independently, or we can create an inquiry document with reference to a preceding document. What is the preceding document? We just create an inquiry, right? So I can create, like by clicking this, I can click on create with reference, and we can give inquiry number here, whatever we just done, right? And say copy. Just click on copy. You see, every data from inquiry has been copied to the quotation, right? So we haven't entered any data in the quotation. All the data has been copied from the preceding document. We can call it as either preceding document or a source document. From there, it has been copied to the subsequent document, or we can call this as a target document, right? So all the information has been copied, and we have a quotation now, right? But if I click on save,
Sir, excuse me, Shashank this side.
yeah, sure.
Sir, earlier when you have made this quotation, the net value was 0. And now when we, with reference to inquiry, we have created it is 2.15 euro.
Yeah, at the quotation, I hope I haven't entered the earlier. I haven't entered the quantity.
Oh,
Okay. I just show you the document, but I did not enter the quantity there. That's the reason it's showing 0.
okay. And sir, one thing in real time, the inquiry will also be created by the end user. I mean, the client will be ordering something. So this inquiry part will be coming from the client side, right, to the end user?
No, whatever the document you are creating, see where we created this inquiry document now in our SAP system, right? So customer can inquire by any way, like say he can send an email asking for some material, but you need to have your own record. So what you do, that particular data what customer has sent inquiry for, that you enter into the system as an inquiry document for your reference. Okay.
Okay.
Inquiry is created in your SAP system.
Okay.
Okay. So when I click on save, something, a pop-up message saying here called as document incomplete. So what is this incomplete document? That means there is some mandatory field missing in this particular sales document. See, how did we control what field should be mandatory, what should not be mandatory, these all things at the time of customer master with account groups, right? Likewise, we have one concept called as incompletion log, where we can set up what field should be mandatory in a sales order. So once you set up that, and if that field is not maintained, then system will not allow you to proceed. Okay, then system will not allow you to proceed until you save it. Okay, until you save it, system will not allow you to proceed. So here you see system is not allowing me to proceed because there is a incompletionness. So the logic here is you can save an incomplete document. Okay, you can save an incomplete document, but you cannot create the subsequent transaction with that reference. Got my point? That means if a quotation is incomplete, no problem, you can save it, but you cannot create an order with that particular incompleted quotation. Okay, so the logic is the document should be always complete if you want to create a subsequent transaction. If a document is incomplete, you can save it, but you cannot create the subsequent transaction. So you can go to edit and you can make this document complete. So what was missing in this document? That is validity periods were missing. I haven't entered the validity periods. That's the reason it is showing validity periods are missing here, right? So in the study material, if I take you to, I hope the page number 235. Yes, incompletion log, page number 235. It's just one page configuration. So what we're trying to do here, you see, terms of payment, Incoterm, sales district, PO number, these are mandatory fields. You can mention here which field should be mandatory. And if that field, if user is not entering, then system will not allow you to save. System will show a incomplete message, right? So let's come back. So let me make this particular document complete. So let me maintain the validity of periods. So I'll just give it as say some 25th, right? So now this document is complete. I'll also maintain this. I'll just mention today's date here. Right? I just click on save. You see, now this quotation is complete and it allowed me to save, and the quotation number has been generated, right? So you can create a transaction with reference or without reference. And when you're creating a document, if a mandatory field is missing, system will not allow you to proceed. That means it will allow you to save, but you cannot create a subsequent transaction with reference to that document. So you need to always make a document complete. If you want to check whether the document is complete, see, I clicked on save, system has popped up a message saying that whether the system has just shown me a message saying that some field is missing. So this is an incomplete document, right? Without clicking save also I can check. Go to edit. In the edit, you will have a field called as option called as incompletion log. Just press that incompletion log. System will tell you what field is missing, whether the document is complete or not. You can check by going to edit and click it. Right. So this is how we create a quotation. Right. Now let me show you a very important thing. So I'll be sharing some documents called as process documents. This folder you'll be receiving. You name a process, you have a complete documentation of the process. So first we create an inquiry, right? So let me show you here. You practice or not, but at least go through these documents. Okay, whenever you have time, go through this document even though you don't practice. Because this document has every step-by-step configuration of every process. You name a process. So what is an inquiry? A little background. How do we create an inquiry? VA11. And what is the document type? IN. And what is the first screen we have seen? This is the first screen we have seen, right? Then next, this is the second screen we have seen where we have entered all the details, right? And then we clicked on save. We clicked on save, then system has generated an inquiry number. Right? Likewise, with a quotation, sales order. You name a process, any process in SAP SD module. There is a documentation like this with a screenshot which will explain you everything. Right? So I'll share this. So please go through this particular if you don't get time to practice. So right, we created a quotation. The next is sales order. So how do we create a sales order? We create a sales order with a transaction code called as VA01. And what is the document type we have for the sales order? It is OR. So as I mentioned yesterday, it is not that how to create a transaction. Okay, as a consultant, you need to have a knowledge about how to create a transaction as well, because you need to prepare documents, training manuals, you need to give training, lots of things you need to. So you should know that. But as a consultant, what you know, what you should know. So what you should know as a consultant, what all the system is performing in the backend. Okay, so this is a very important question in the interview. So if you what all the activity system performs in the backend whenever we create a sales order? What activity system performs? Everything in the SD module system performs. That means partner determination, listing execution. You can see here, right? So everything system performs. Okay, system performs everything. So let's start from the first. See, this may not be in a sequence, but this all the activity system will be performed. This is the same question which was asked in a different way in one of the interviews. That is, what all the determination system will check when you create a sales order? Only determinations, not all the activities what system will perform, but only the determinations. What determinations? You tell anything whatever you remember randomly, but partner determination, material determination, free goods determination, text determination, output determination. So these are the determination system which would be following, doing whenever you create a sales order, right? If they ask you what are the activities, you can tell anything like this. There is no sequence. You can tell everything, right? So how do we create a sales order? We create a sales order by going to a transaction called as VA01. VA01. sold to party, and the ship to party. Sorry, this is a quotation, right? Let me go back. VS01 VS01 is the transaction to create a sales order. Document type is OR and 1000. So mention these details, say enter, system again same sold to party, sold to party, ship to party, and the material, and say quantity. Just ignore that message, you will not be facing that message. Okay, so let us save it. So it says document incomplete. Let's see what is that incompleteness. Okay, lots of fields were missing actually. Terms of payment, gross weight, order quantity, net weight, like lots of material. So let us don't worry about these fields. Why? Because you know how to create an order, and if something is stopping for you, you know which concept it is, right? That is incompletion log. In the incompletion log, these are mandatory, so these were not maintained. If you want to maintain this all fields, okay, we can maintain it. We can go to the billing payment terms. Let's say 001. Okay, so we can mention these things. Quantity is one. Goods is equivalent. There's some issue with the material mass itself in the free goods. Okay. Right. So we can mention these fields and make this document incomplete. But let's not worry about the incompleteness. As I mentioned, where to check for the incompleteness, right? So this is how you create a sales order, and when you create a sales order, system will perform all these activities in the background. It will check for the price, it will check whether the material is available or not, if material is available. So when we can deliver, it will check how you can send the communication to the customer by email or by printout, right? So whether customer has enough credit balance or not. So everything system checks. System checks everything. So this is how we create an order. So once we create an order, with reference to an order, we create a delivery document, right? We create a delivery document. So sales and billing will happen in SD module. Sales and billing will happen in SD module, and shipping will happen in the LE module, logistics execution module. Okay. So, but it is part of SD. It's part of SD, but that's a different module, or LE is altogether. So how do we create a delivery? We create a delivery with a transaction code called as VL01N. We'll discuss more about the delivery when it comes to the delivery documents. So we create a delivery with reference to a delivery doc. We create a delivery with reference to a sales order, and with a transaction code called as VL01N. So when I'm creating a delivery, I can just create a delivery and save it in the system. Nothing will happen, because unless there is a button called as PGI, post goods issue. Okay, in the delivery document you will be having a button called as PGI. What you after entering all the details, you need to click the post goods issue button. Okay, then only system will start the delivery process. Until then, even though you create it and save it, nothing will happen. Once you hit that, then only system will transfer it will create a transfer order. If you have a W module, it will create picking, packing, shipment. Everything will be processed only when you hit the PGA button, right? So what all activity system will perform once you create a delivery? It updates the stocks, it updates an inventory accounting document. See, there are two kinds of accounting documents. One is financial accounting document and one is inventory accounting document. Financial accounting document will be triggered whenever you create a transaction to the customer, that means invoice kind of thing. Okay. Inventory document will be generated at the IM module level, the MM, and the accounting entries is cost of goods sold account debit to inventory account credit. And it updates in the document flow, it updates the credit management, it updates in the reporting LIS, and it updates in the billing unit. So these are the activities which system will be performing whenever you create a delivery document, right? And you need to hit which here. The next is invoice. How do we create invoice? With a transaction code called as VF01. VF01 is a transaction for invoice. Again, there are two things: billing and invoice. The billing and accounting, we can call it out. Billing happens in the SD module, accounting happens in the FI module. Okay? Billing in the SD and accounting in the FI. Right? So we can create a billing document and we can hold it without releasing it to accounting. Only when it is released to accounting, then only an invoice will be triggered and sent to the customer. You can create a billing document and save it in the system. Nothing will happen unless you release it or post it to the accounting. Okay. So that again we'll discuss at the time of billing documents, right? So what is a legal document? What is pro forma invoice? These all things we'll discuss at that time. So how do we create invoice with VF01 transaction? See, this folder has everything. Like it can be delivery or it can be billing, anything. Every process is there in this document. So what all activity system will be performing? It is it will generate a financial accounting document, that is customer account debit to revenue upon credit. A profitable analysis document generates, and cost center document generates, document for credit management LIS. So it updates in this all things. Right? So this is what happens whenever you create a invoice. That means one transaction is completed, starting from the inquiry, quotation, order, delivery, and billing. Right? Now, as I mentioned, the real action starts, that is returns. Right? So customer complains about the returns, saying that the material whatever you delivered is not up to the mark, or it is damaged, or whatever it is. So how do you handle? As I mentioned, you have two options, right? What are the two options you would be having when customer says that I want to return the goods? That means there is some damage. One is you can physically replace the goods to the customer, or you can give back money to the customer. So whenever returns happen, that means whenever customer complaint comes saying that there is stock damage, so first what you do, whenever customer complains there is some damage, let's say company, you take some Maruti company, okay, and dealer, some customer. So Maruti has delivered 100 cars. Okay, Maruti has delivered 100 cars to dealer. So now dealer is complaining, saying that out of the 100 cars which you delivered, 10 cars is damaged. Okay, 10 cars is damaged. Now what options we have? As I mentioned, two options. One is we can replace the stock, and the other one is we can give the money back to the customer. So whenever customer complains saying that there is some damage at the stock, what we do is we send some representative from the company to the customer location and ask him to assess what is the level of damage happened, whether it is a transport damage, handling damage, what kind of damage it is. First we need to assess, right? So we send some representative from the company to the customer. Why? Because rather than taking this 10 stock to your plant and assessing, because The return delivery might be very costly, right? Very expensive return delivery. Instead of that, what you do, you send the person to the customer location and ask him to assess what is the damage, why is damage, and everything. So once he goes to everything, your that particular representative will be giving a document called as return note. This is an internal document. Okay, he will be giving a return note with mentioning all the details, saying that why it is damaged and everything, and the signature. So once you are going to give some return note, then what you do, you create a return order. How you create a return order? With a document type called as RE. Okay. You create a return order and then do a return delivery, and you create a return invoice. But very important here is, see, in standard, how we are proceeding. In the standard, we create an order, then we create a delivery, then we create an invoice. Right? Order, delivery, invoice. This is the process. That means we create a delivery with reference to an order. We create a invoice with reference to a delivery. This is how it happens in the standard process. But when it comes to the return process, SAP tells you, when it comes to the return order, SAP tells you, don't create your return invoice with your return delivery. Okay, don't create your return invoice with your return delivery. You should create your return invoice with return order. Right? You should create it with return order. Why like that? Why we should create it with? You see the process. The processes are very, very important. In the interviews also they ask you, can you take me through the return process? Can you explain me what are the steps happen? How do you create with reference to what you create? Like this, they'll be asking the questions. Okay. So how do we create the returns? As you see here, we create a return order, return delivery, but we are creating return invoice not with reference to return delivery. We are creating it with return order. Why like that? The reason is, see, what is the stock damaged at the customer location? Anyone? What is the stock damaged at the customer location? It is the 10 quantity. 10 quantity. So if you tell customer, okay, send me the 10 goods, I'll check at my plant whether really it is a damage or not. Let me ascertain at my company. Then what happens? In the return delivery, let's assume that another out of 10 goods, 5 goods are almost lost. Okay, you cannot see 5 goods. By the time the return delivery happened, company could see only 5 goods. Then company will issue a written memo, that credit memo for 5 goods or 10 goods. How much quantity system the company will be creating a return invoice? Anyone?
Is for 10.
5, I guess, because 5s are lost.
Is for 5. Why? Because you received only 5 from, okay, customer is claiming, saying that there is 10 goods damaged. And when you ask the customer to send the 10 goods to me, I'll check whether what is damaged. By the time you received, it's only 5 goods. Right? That means if you create a return invoice with return delivery, this is what will happen. Right? Which is wrong, because always the damaged goods should be certified at customer location. Okay? Always damaged goods should be certified at the customer location. If not, if you take a return delivery and create a return invoice with return delivery, this could be happen. Right? So that's the reason SAP tells that always create a return invoice with return order, but not with the return delivery. Right? So this is returns process. And whenever you create a returns, the accounting entry get reversed. Okay? The accounting entry get reversed. Until now, whatever the accounting entry we are discussing is revenue account, customer account debit to revenue account credit. Right? Customer account debit to revenue account credit. But if it's a returns, it will be always revenue account debit to customer account credit. Okay? The accounting entry will get reversed because we are paying to the customer, right? So accounting entry will get reversed. So this is the written process. So as I mentioned, every process you have it in this document. You see, this is the written process. Right? Just go through this folder. You have every process in it. So after the written process, then next is credit memo. That means customer is saying that I don't want the replacement of stock. You just give my money back. Okay. So credit memo. Why we create it whenever we need to, whenever we want to pay some money to the customer, we will be creating credit memo. It can be different reasons. So user has mistakenly overcharged previous invoice. Now you want to adjust it. Or the return delivery might be more costlier. Rather than that, just give money back to the customer. Or secondary promotional activities. So what is the secondary promotional activities? Anyone from automobile sales, you will be understanding what is promotional activity. Anyone? What is secondary promotional activity? The secondary promotional activity is, let's take a scenario. Let's say Maruti and dealer. See, what is the best season for car sales in India, at least? In India, what is the best season for car sales?
Festive season.
It can be festive season or harvesting season, right? Festive or harvesting season. You take month of April and May. Do we have any festivals in April and May? No festivals. Neither it is harvesting season, but companies want to do their sales, right? So Maruti, what it's instructing its dealers is give 2% extra discount in the month of April and May. Okay, give 2% extra discount in the month of April and May. Okay, these are free accessories, whatever it is, some extra. Usually in the automobile industry, you'll be seeing this. They are secondary promotional. Okay, after the months, after this time, this 2%, after April and May, this 2% is amounting to some say 10 lakhs. Okay, so 10 lakhs. Who should bear this 10 lakhs now? Dealer or company? Anyone? Who should bear this 10 lakhs? Obviously, company, Maruti, right? Maruti should bear it because Maruti has instructed its customer to give this offer, right? So, how do we settle this to the? How do we settle this to the customer? That means to the dealer through credit memo, right? So it is not you are giving money to the customer because there is some damage. No, there might not be some damage, but we give credit memos to the customer whenever you need to pay to the customer. That it can be adjusted in the subsequent invoices. Okay, it's a continuous transactions, right? So you can adjust that particular credit memo in the next invoices, right? So that is credit memo. And whenever you create a credit memo, as you are giving money to the customer, the accounting entry will become revenue account debit to customer account credit. And see, whenever you create a credit memo, I need to relog in. Just let me relog in. This is very, very important. Credit memo and debit memo are order related billing. See, in this scenario, whatever I just explained you in the secondary promotional activity, is company anything delivering to the customer? No, right? There is no delivery, but we are paying money to the customer. So it's a order related billing. There is no delivery involved in this. So in the interviews, if they ask you, can you tell me some processes which is order related billing? Credit memo and debit memo are order related billing. So VA01, and if you credit memo is created with CR, and this is the very important is whenever you are trying to create a credit memo, that means user, whenever the user is trying to create a credit memo, a credit memo will always have a billing block. You see this? A credit memo will always have a billing block. Why this billing block? Because see, we cannot use that authorization of creating these kind of transactions to the user directly, right? Because if the user knows customer, what he will do, instead of 10,000, he will give 15,000 credit, right? Instead of 10,000, he will give 15,000 credit to the customer. So at any time, if a credit memo is created, that should be authorized by some other senior person. You go to a bank, you want to withdraw high value cash by check. When you give a check, immediately they don't give a cash, right? Because they want to verify, because they're giving high value amount to you. So they want to verify. It goes 1 to 2 counters. So first the operations manager, then other manager. They will check the signature, name, ensure everything, and then only they give you the cash. That means one person will not have that authorization, right? The same way, whenever you create a credit memo, user creates a credit memo, an email will be automatically sent to that particular manager who is responsible for authorizing it. Then he will go to the change mode and he need to release this billing block. That means this credit memo, he need to make it blank. You see, what is releasing credit memo? It's nothing but making blank. So whenever user creates a credit memo, by default, it will be having a credit block, sorry, billing block, and an authorized person has to release it. Okay. So this is a order related billing. The next is
Sir,
debit memo.
excuse me, sir. Sir, can you please repeat the process of authorized person who is releasing the credit memo?
Yeah, we have a workflow authorizations or we have different authorizations. What we can do is we can status profile, different configurations are there. We can configure saying that this transaction has to be authorized and approved by some higher person. That means if a sales executive is creating a transaction, a sales manager has to approve it. Okay. So how do they do it? That for that there is different configurations to be set up, right? So if we cannot give that authorization of creating a credit memo straight away to a user, so what we give 1 or 2 levels of authorizations where it should be checked and released. Okay. So the next is debit memo. That means at any time you want to get some money from the customer. Let's say you raised the invoice to the customer, but he has not paid. Now you want to charge a late payment fee from him or some interest from him. Okay. So how do you do that? Create debit memo. You raise a debit memo to the customer saying that this is the amount I need to receive from you. Okay? So debit memo is also a order related billing, and as in the debit memo you are receiving the money, it is always customer account debit to revenue account credit. It's always customer account debit to customer account debit to revenue account credit. Right. The next, invoice correction. Invoice is a, see, there is a difference between billing and invoice. Okay. Invoice is a legal document. It's a legal document. Not anywhere in the world, invoice is a legal document. You can create an invoice if there is something wrong in the invoice billing amount or customer is returning some quantity. You can correct an invoice. If customer return the quantity, that means the transaction has been cancelled, then you can cancel an invoice. You can create an invoice, you can correct an invoice, you can cancel an invoice, but you can never delete an invoice. Even the transaction is, that means you delivered 100 quantity to the customer don't want it, he returned back to you. You should do invoice cancellation, but not you cannot delete the invoice. Invoices cannot be deleted. Okay, invoice should be there in the system. There is a legal practice. Okay, so if there is something wrong in the value, quantity, whatever it is, you do invoice correction. How do we do invoice correction? Again, this process is also is there in the document. You name a process, you'll be seeing a document of configuration. Invoice correct. You see the debit memo, and there is credit memo, and this is debit memo, and you can see invoice cancellation, invoice correction, every process. You name a process, you have a complete config document, right? So how do we create invoice correction? And this process has some speciality. Invoice correction process has some speciality. What is the speciality of invoice correction? Okay, I need to show you in the document. Let me- There are two specialities in the invoice correction. That is, you see, it's a standard process. We created an order, then after we created a delivery, right? We created delivery and we created invoice also. We created an invoice, but there is something wrong. Okay, so you can see this now. The customer is charged extra 1,000 INR for each item he ordered. The original price was actually 2,000, right? The price was 2,000, but we charged only 1,000 from the customer at the time of placing us. Now the business has to compensate the customer for overcharging the customer, right? So how do you do that with invoice correction? As I mentioned, you can only correct an invoice, right? So what is the item created in the sales order? The item is 1503 for 10 quantity. 1503 and 10 quantity. I told you that you can create a transaction with reference to a preceding document or not. It's an option. But there are few processes where you have to refer mandatorily. Mandatorily, you have to refer to the preceding document. If not, you can create. Out of that, invoice correction is one process. Invoice correction is one process where you have to mandatorily refer to the original invoice. You are doing invoice correction means you need to have that original document, invoice correction. So invoice correction is one process which you need to refer mandatorily to create an invoice correction. Okay. So 1503 is the material and 10 quantity. So what is the specialty of invoice correction is, how do you see, mandatory. Or else I can also show in the system. If I go to VA01, VA01. And how do you create? RK is the invoice correction document. So RK. See, earlier, whenever we enter these details and say press enter, system is taking directly to the transaction. But if I press enter, system will ask for the billing document. Unless until I give the billing document, system will not allow you to proceed. It's a mandatory for RK to refer to a preceding document, that is billing document. If not, you cannot proceed. And what is the specialty of RK? That is, same line item will copied it twice. What is the line item? So what is the line item with which we created? You see, 1503 is the line item and 10 quantity, right? Let me take a screenshot of this. Yeah. So same line item, 1503, 1503, 10 quantity, 10 quantity. This is the first specialty of the RK. And first line item will be always positive and second line item will be negative. You see, this is minus. First line item will be positive and second line item will be negative. And first line item will be grayed out. You see this first line item, I cannot change anything here, quantity, price, nothing, it's grayed out. But coming to the second line item, I can change quantity. This is editable field, but first line item is not editable, right? So these are the specialities of RK. Copying the same line item twice, and the first line item is positive, second line item is negative, and first line item is grayed out, and second line item is editable. That means any correction you want to do it in only the second line item. So as the second line item is negative, system will behave in a opposite way. That means if you increase the quantity, document will go into negative. Okay. If you decrease the quantity, document value will go into positive. But depending upon what you want to do, whether you want to increase the document value or decrease the document value, how you want to adjust, that you do it with this particular quantity changes. Right. This is RK invoice correction. Okay. So we'll stop it here, and from tomorrow we'll continue, and tomorrow from rush order to the last process we'll be discussing, and tomorrow we'll be finishing all the business process, sales processes. So later we can continue with the document types. So any questions for today?
Sir, in this,
two videos, yesterday one and today's one, because I missed some earlier part?
I'll do it in the half an hour. Okay. Once we're done with the session, in the half an hour, I'll do it. Yeah. Any other questions?
In this return invoice, the second in second it was you were saying that if we increase the document, right? So the customer account was getting credited. So in the above rush order, if we go there, there are two accounting yes over here. So if we increase the item value, then the value of a document will be negative. That means the revenue account debited and customer account credited.
Yes. See, if a document value is going positive, it is a standard accounting entry. That means you are receiving money. If a document is negative, that means you are paying to the customer. That's the reason revenue account is debited and customer account is credited.
Yeah. So if we take the example which you have taken, so the original price was of 2,000, sir. So and we have charged less. So
okay.
So
no, don't go with that example. That is a different configuration and that is a different scenario. Whatever we are discussing here is a different. Here we are discussing process, and in this we have a scenario. In this document we have a scenario, but in the study material we are just discussing only process. So don't compare the process with this particular now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, Pranay here.
Pranay, go ahead.
Yeah, so one question, invoice correction when you're doing RK. Sir, when we are correcting the invoice, in the scenario what you have shown, so it is the supplementary bill, sir?
No, not a supplementary bill, because you cannot create multiple invoices for a single delivery. It's the same invoice which you are correcting.
Okay.
You are just only correcting the invoice. You are not creating something altogether new.
Okay.
Praveen, do we need to create a debit note also here in invoice correction? In config document that you shown, there was a debit note raised, something like that.
That is later. See, you need to pay the customer, then you give the debit note. But here we are just only correcting the invoice. That means we are just adjusting the values here. If you really want to give some money to the customer, then you give it through the debit note.
And one more thing.
Because as I mentioned, an invoice you cannot create, you cannot delete it, right? Anything is possible, you can only correct it.
Okay. And there in return order and credit memo. What is, I mean to say, major difference? When do we go for return order and when do we go for credit memo?
So I clearly explained you. When customer asks for the replacement of material, then you go for the returns. Okay? The customer, 10 goods damaged, you replace the 10 goods to the customer. If customer is saying that I don't want this 10 goods, you give me my money back. Then you give it with the credit memo. Okay?
Okay. But in return order, that return delivery that we are creating, what if the goods are damaged? We may or may not create return delivery. This is the case there. Is this possible that we don't have any return delivery? Only I have created return order and then I have created return invoice basing upon that.
Okay. But suppose the scenario what happens there and what customer tells you, whether he wants the replacement or he wants the money back. Got the point?
Actually, I will see the video again today, Praveen. I am confused regarding both, so I will
that's
come
the
back
reason I'm
to you.
stopping a little early, because if I continue, you'll be more confused with other processes. So that's the reason I want to stop it here. Okay. Watch the video and be clear with the processes. This is very, very important. This is what you should understand actually. Right? So we'll call it a day today and catch up tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll continue with this and we'll try to finish all the rest of the process tomorrow so that we can start seeing something in the system, what is the document and how system is differentiating with all things. Like I just told you, there is some specialty for RK. where is that specialty, where is the configuration control, everything we'll see it in the system. So see you all and good night. Catch up tomorrow. Bye bye.